So for Overwatch 2, this will hopefully help everybody get some nice insight as to who will be good for the start of Season 2 coming very shortly, or is already here by the time you're watching it. So I'm going to go over just how good everybody is as far as open queue and role queue, because I do think that they both do matter and both do vary depending upon every hero as well as team comps, obviously. So we'll just try to mix it around and see who we want to pick up. Diva, I would say, oh, honestly, I'm going to put an A tier. I was thinking S, honestly, but because of some of the other people that are very, very strong right now, she's a little bit hard countered by them, such as Zarya, and honestly, I've seen a shit ton of Symmetra players as well. But Diva is still a very, very solid tank, no matter if it's role queue or open queue. Her being able to essentially black hole anything that comes at you. She does obviously a pretty good amount of damage because she never has to reload. She can definitely dive any of the squishies or backline units or support heroes as well. And then her ult is obviously very strong. And even if you get her out of her mech, she's still not dead and can still, you know, obviously stay alive. Very overall just hard to kill and a very, very solid tank choice for sure. Doomfist, not so much. I'm gonna have to put him down. I'm gonna have to put him down in D. Obviously, if you are a Doomfist main or know how to play him well, he's definitely solid, but he just does not do enough. He's kind of just a very mobile tank that doesn't do a whole lot of damage. He's just more of a problem. He's definitely not really going to. He's not going to win 1v1 fights, but he's not really going to lose them either. He's just kind of there to cause disruption, but I think I just experienced way too many not so good Doomfists, and then every once in a while there'll definitely be one, but it's not really that they're killing you, it's just that they are hard to kill because he's so mobile. So it just kind of depends on how you look at it, and you know, definitely if it's role queue, he being the solo tank, he's not very viable to me in what I've seen. And same with Wrecking Ball, just essentially in all of that. I think, you know, in more of open queue, if you can get some more tanks, he's definitely solid, and he's definitely much more mobile even than Doomfist, and can honestly at least push out more consistent damage, but still just not. He's not as annoying as he used to be, because if you are just a solo tank as Wrecking Ball, he's not really such a problem child. Now, if you're doing role queue and you have 2 or even 3 tanks, he can definitely still be very good, but not really the choice I would make if you want to, you know, really help your team. Obviously, all of these, every single person on this list can very much vary depending upon how good you or another player is or not are with them. But overall, from what I've seen and what I've experienced, on my team and enemy teams, you don't see these 2 tanks very much at all, and when you do, it's very different whether they are good or bad, and there's not too much in between. Genji I'll put in A. I think the mobility he has, as well as he might not do the most damage, but him being so mobile and being able to pick some backline units and get out of there, as well as he definitely has a very strong ultimate and definitely hard to kill because of the mobility. He's definitely a solid choice, especially depending upon what team comp you do have. You know, he's definitely just one of those heroes that come in, do some damage, might not even get a kill or a pick, but he definitely caused some, mass disruption, and it's not too difficult to get his ultimate, especially if you're doing some decent damage, and he's definitely can help clean up some kills as well, or definitely dive on some backline. So he's definitely a solid choice. He's a little bit obviously harder to learn or play, so if you're not used to playing him, definitely take your time to get used to that. But, you know, very overall solid choice. Reaper right now is definitely S tier. I mean, he just does so much damage, and against, solo tanks, even depending upon who those solo tanks are, somebody like Roadhog or Winston, like you're just gonna really, even Orisa, um, really blow through their health. Um, his ult is very solid as well, can definitely deal with any squishy in the game very well, and the fact that the more damage he does is going to consistently still heal him. It's not a whole lot of health, obviously, but still, it's, the viability of you close range in a 1v1 fight against a Reaper, no matter who you are, it's definitely going to be a hard fight for the most part. Um, and then obviously him being able to get in and out of fights, whether it's his teleport or Wraith form, definitely makes him a very, very strong choice, especially if he has at least a decent healer on his team to just let him literally just keep walking and shotgunning people in the face. So, very, very solid choice. Good team no matter if it's open or roll queue for sure. Junker Queen I'm going to have to put down in B. Um, She's basically the female version of Roadhog, except questionable being able to heal herself. So Roadhog obviously just has an ability where he heals himself. She does also kind of, but she has um, almost half as much health as Roadhog does, and a lot of her actual healing comes from her being able to hit people with her abilities. So if she does not do that, she pretty much is just not a great tank. On top of that, um, she has to be close range to do anything. She doesn't, she's very ability driven. If you can hit her abilities and you have, a decent team keeping you alive or causing problems where you can get close and hit these abilities, um, she can definitely be successful. As the solo tank and roll queue, definitely, depending on the map and game mode, is much more questionable than some other tanks, but in open queue, if you're feeling like you have a pretty solid team, she's definitely not a bad choice at all, and her ultimate is definitely very solid as well. It's essentially an anti-healing grenade, except on however many people you hit, plus it also causes them to lose health and give that health to you as well from the leeching. So definitely an overall solid choice, but there are better tanks that you could play depending upon team comp game mode and everything like that. So just watch out for her, but not an awful choice for sure. Oh, let's see. Zenyatta, I gotta put my man down here at C. He's definitely just falling off for sure. He just has no ability to deal with somebody diving on him. I know that they obviously upgraded his kick, but that doesn't do shit. It only puts them a little bit further, which yeah, sure is nice, but it still only does 30 damage like every other melee in the game. He's definitely one of the, I would argue, the best support as far as doing and or helping with damage. So if you definitely are lacking in the damage department, but you're playing support or you need kind of some more healing as well, he's definitely a solid choice. His ultimate is definitely one of the best in the game as far as keeping everybody alive for a few seconds, obviously. So he's just very too easy to kill and or to stay alive with. But other than that, everything else about him is very solid. So I would just try to look for, you know, you have to really look out for what role you're trying to play as far as support, because there's definitely, somebody like Mercy where it's, straight up healing damage boost. And obviously that doesn't really count as her doing damage, but, if you are lacking in the damage department, Zenyatta is definitely one of the best to help and or do damage for your team. But if anybody dives on him, he just has no way of essentially staying alive unless you get some team help or you kill them quickly if they're squishy or something. So have to be careful. Echo. Echo I'll put in C as well. Just way too inconsistent. I don't really think her ultimate is super useful. When I think of Echo, I think of Pharah because they're so similar as far as being able to fly around, do some damage, and hopefully just not really get picked. But then, when I think of Pharah, her ultimate is definitely way better than Echo's. And while Echo can change to whoever and get a quick ultimate, um, it's just not always the most helpful. And essentially, unless she is hitting you with her 3 orbs, if you will, and sticking you with them, then she's not really worth it. Now, if you can do that pretty consistently and get at least 2 of your orbs on a squishy and or healer, essentially just anybody that's not a tank, um, you can honestly get a pick or a peel really quick and kill them. But if you can't do that consistently enough or be able to kind of get close with her focus beam, which, she's mobile and can fly, but then also having to get close, it kind of like negates that. So you just definitely have to play around her strengths and try to play around your team as well. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend choosing her if you want to, get some high ranks and do well for you and your team. Ooh, let's see who else. Mei is back with a vengeance, honestly. I don't want to put her in S because she just kind of came back at more towards the end of this current season. But she's definitely still been a problem being able to, close range, essentially win most 1v1 fights and do pretty high damage with those. She can still, you know, alternate fire her icicle shot and get some snipes and do some very high damage with that as well, being able to wall off certain areas or certain, attacks defense and even use that to kill people is very good. Being able to heal herself and become invulnerable for a few seconds is great as well. That definitely helps, her team and the healers and cause more problems for the enemy team. And then her ultimate is definitely one of the better ones in the game as well, because anybody in that is just being frozen and has to sit there and hopefully not die or, get picked. So at the worst, they're just immobile for a few seconds anyway, which is definitely not a bad thing for your team to have against that. So definitely a solid choice. I would play her. She might seem inconsistent due to damage from the previous Mei, but this Mei is definitely um, better as far as damage, much more consistent, but less pickability. So, you're not going to actually be able to freeze anyone aside from her ultimate like you used to be able to. And then just, hit that icicle on the head and they're dead. Can't do that anymore, but more consistent and slowing damage from her. She's still a very solid choice, honestly, in my opinion. So, yeah. Widowmaker, I think I have to put definitely in B. I think she is a solid choice right now. Um, Obviously, if you dive on her, she's pretty easy to kill unless she gets some help, but she can definitely excel in the right team comps and on the right maps because if everybody is focused on everybody else, nobody really is paying attention to the sniper that they can't really see, and she can definitely get some very nice picks for your team no matter what comp you're running as far as roll queue or open queue. So she's definitely very nice to use as long as she's getting some, nice picks or helping with some heavy damage against some tanks or something. She's definitely a solid choice. But again, she's kind of like the Zenyatta where, some of these backline snipers and everything just get killed very easily. And Widowmaker is one of them. But I think with her damage output and pickability, it's definitely she can definitely be utilized well, especially in the right team comps. So not an awful choice, but just be careful, make sure to obviously switch off your heroes if you're just not doing well, or depending on what your team needs for sure. Oh, good old Roadhog, I gotta put an S tier. Just how much health he has, how much health he can, regen from his ability and gain, and then obviously how much health he can get from his teammates as well. He's definitely just a very, very hard tank to kill. The only bad thing about him is if you're not hitting your hooks, then you're probably not doing very well. But being able to peel those, um, you know, all these 200-esque health heroes in the game and or supports and just pull them in and essentially instant kill them, or at least get them very, very low to where you can shoot them again and they'll die, or maybe a teammate has or will shoot them very soon as well. He's definitely one of the best peelers in the game to get some, you know, easy picks and definitely keep himself alive for sure. And his ultimate is pretty solid as well. So definitely a solid tank choice, even if he is, you're playing role queue as solo tank, but definitely even more so on the open queue side if you're playing with multiple. And since we're talking about Roadhog, we will go Ana. I think Ana is arguably one of the best supports in the game, especially right now. I think her anti-healing grenade is just one of the best abilities in the game. Always has been and always will be. To be able to stop X amount of people from being healed is a great thing. She can definitely deal out some damage, maybe not a whole lot, but she can definitely be top of your team or very close to top of your team and healing for sure, no matter who the other healer is. And then her ultimate is solid, not always the best, but it's, pretty solid to give somebody, a nano boost for sure. But definitely the anti-healing grenade is definitely why she's up here, especially, if you're playing role queue going against a Roadhog, being able to stop him from, using arguably, I mean, both of his abilities are great, but that's a great one for him to stay alive, obviously, is heal himself for however many hundred of health he can, and gain healing from other support units. It's definitely an easy way to just bring him down, as well as any other person in the entire game for sure. Um, so she's definitely a solid choice, can definitely deal out a ton of healing as well, especially with, one or more tanks depending upon what you're playing. But very, very solid support choice. And she can honestly deal with somebody diving on her with the sleep dart, which is nice. And even if you miss that, you can, do a decent amount of damage, but also heal yourself with the healing grenade. And obviously that also gains the amount of health that teammates will receive, or healing they will receive for a few seconds as well. So definitely a solid support choice for sure. Oh, who do we want now? Let's go Kiriko. Um, I have to put her in S as well. I think essentially she is um, hmm, as far as healing, one of the best for sure because she never has to stop doing it, much like Mercy. She can do some damage if you kind of need that. But her ultimate is definitely one of the best in the game right now. It's so strong, being able to get speed boost, attack speed, um, essentially for, however long the ultimate is as far as distance and area. But definitely solid. She's definitely hard to kill because of her teleport ability, being able to make herself and or her teammates invulnerable for a few seconds is very, very good as well, obviously. Definitely a lot of saves with that, so very solid choice. Yeah, there's really nothing too bad to say about her aside from, just kind of depending upon how you need to play her based on your team and what they are doing. But nothing really bad to say. Can definitely get in and out of fights, do some damage, lots and lots of healing, and a very solid ultimate with that as well. Winston, I gotta put in B. I think he's just too inconsistent. It very much depends on team comp and enemy team comp for him to be successful. He can definitely jump on some backline units and get some kills, but he's also one of the easiest tanks to kill because his bubble shield isn't that great, but he just doesn't do a whole lot of damage, which I understand because he is a dive tank, but if you want to play a dive tank, then just play D.Va, because also Winston's ultimate is just super lackluster. I mean, it might be nice to keep people off the point for whatever reason you might need to, or the payload, either one. But other than that, you're not really gonna necessarily kill anybody with it, unless you're just kind of shoving them into a wall. But he can be utilized against the right people and with the right people, but he's just too inconsistent, and a lot of that has to do with your team comp as well as the enemy team comp. So just be careful. He can do well. I've seen Winston's do plenty fine, especially with open queue and you have more than one tank for sure. But as the solo tank and role queue, just watch out a lot more and be careful with them for sure. Sojourn, I have to put an S as well. I think she is one of the best DPS units in the game right now. The consistent amount of damage she can put out, whether it's with her rifle damage in general or her, charge from her rifle, is solid as well for sure. Or her, orb area effect does not a whole lot of damage, but can definitely cause some problems, in an area for sure, and can, harm as many people. I think her ultimate is, while it is good, obviously, I think it's not always the best. Definitely good if you can get kind of a squishy by themselves a little bit, or they're just kind of one tank and you kind of blast them like a Roadhog or something. But I definitely think her strength is being able to be very, very mobile and dish out a solid amount of damage and get some picks or at least help tank bust a little bit. So overall, solid DPS choice, even if you're not really that mobile with her. She definitely has, it's basically all ups with her, honestly. There's not really a downside to playing her aside from, her biggest comparison is obviously Soldier, which I'm honestly also going to put an S, just because he can heal himself as well as his teammates, and he's the most consistent DPS in the entire game, has been, probably always will be. Um, so yeah, he's solid choice, good ultimate, decently mobile, can dish out high amount of damage and get picks and help. So definitely a solid choice as well. And obviously they play very similarly in certain aspects. So, if you need consistency and DPS, there you go. There's your damage right there. Brigitte, I'll honestly put Brigitte in C. Um, she can be very useful, but she's very specific to that. Definitely have to have the right team comp for her to be successful. I think in a 1v1 fight, she can keep herself alive decently, and she's not always the easiest to kill because of her shield and everything. Um, I think the biggest reason why she's not always the best is honestly her healing. Um, Now, while you can obviously say the opposite of that, I just have to say it's less consistent than Lucio because it is still area effect, but it varies upon you being able to do damage in that area. And her ultimate is not necessarily the best either. It's pretty just meh. Um, Now, being able to gain health as you do damage as a support, as well as heal anybody around you when you're doing that, is very, very strong. But again, that's very much based on, map and game mode and team comp. If nobody's around you, then you can't really keep them alive as far as healing because her, little like 50 health things that she can throw at you every X amount of seconds is just not really, going to keep anybody alive very well. It might be more than 50, but I thought it was 50 at some point. But still, um, inconsistent, but can be successful. You just really have to watch for team comp and honestly enemy team comp as well. But can be very useful in both healing and damage so long as there's people around you on both sides. And since we're kind of talking about area healing, I gotta put my man Lucio, even though he's not really my man. Oof. I have to put him in A. I can't put him in S, and a lot of people are going to probably hate me for that because he definitely does have one of the best ultimates in the game, at least right now. The problem with him is that it's his healing. Um, while he can obviously heal literally your entire team as long as they are close enough, that's great, but he's not going to save anyone unless it's with his ultimate, which that's not what I'm counting. But actual healing, you're just not going to save anyone. Now, is he hard to kill and can he do a pretty good amount of damage for a support? Yes to both. And, can he definitely overall keep your team alive, because he just has to not worry about it for sure. But specific to healing, while the consistency is there, arguably more than, a lot of people, especially someone like Brig that's also area effect healing for the most part, it's just you're not going to keep someone alive with him. Like not really. If you have two people shooting one and you have Lucio healing you, you're gonna die. Because he just can't out heal it with his area effect healing. Still very, very solid choice, don't get me wrong. He's definitely one of the best supports in the game. I wouldn't recommend, if you're playing like open queue, him being your solo support. But, sometimes that can also vary upon who the rest of your team is, if they can also heal themselves. But, in role comp, definitely a solid choice because you know that the other support, so long as they're not really Brig and you're not having to do essentially double area effect healing, like they can probably help you with the healing and you'll be fine for sure. So definitely still a very, very solid choice. Highly recommend. Very easy to play. Just sit there and shoot your gun and you'll automatically be healing. So it's all good. I don't really talk about the speed boost because it's just, very not inconsistent, but on a need to do basis. So it's not really worth bringing up so much. Junkrat. Junkrat I honestly have to bring all the way up into A. Now I did have him lower in the last tier list, but going into Season 2 for Overwatch 2, he's definitely just an overall solid choice. He can kill a squishy in 2 shots. You shoot one ball, you hit them with a concussion mine, they're dead. Tank busting and tank killing help, especially with shields. super helpful. One of the best alts in the game because you're bound to, so long as you obviously get the alt off and click it, you're going to kill any squishy in the game, or at least do a shit ton of damage to them and or a tank. Can definitely fuck up an entire team very easily with that alt. Um, and honestly, his inconsistency is definitely in a 1v1 fight, but even so, he can definitely still hold his own because he has a little bit of mobility with the concussion mines, and just the amount of damage he can do. You know, if he hits you once or twice, like, you're dead. So if he can do that, then, it's a wrap. But that's definitely where he lacks. And honestly, a bad part about playing him sometimes is if they have a Zarya, she can definitely get some nasty charge from him, so you definitely have to watch out for that as Junkrat. But honestly, a very solid DPS choice, mostly if you have, again, the right team, definitely much more useful. But certain maps, game modes, or anything, he can definitely get some easy, quick kills and do a shit ton of damage. Now, since we're talking about Zarya, I have to drop her down to A. I would put her in S because that's probably where most people would put her right now. But the only way she is successful is if people are shooting the bubbles that she makes. Now, while you can get some freebies sometimes with, you see a Junkrat ball coming or something like that, absolutely. But if you're not shooting the Zarya bubbles, she's not going to be good. Now, if you are, she definitely can be one of the hardest tanks to kill because of her bubbles. She definitely has one of the best ultimates in the game as well, and can, help other ultimates, like Genji, like Junkrat, Diva, pretty much anybody, honestly. Hanzo for sure, too. Um, but the reason why I can't put her in S is because of a little bit of inconsistency from her as far as being able to have a good enough charge to do enough damage and to be worth it. But aside from that, she's still a super solid tank choice. Super hard to kill because of her bubbles, and obviously she can regen her shields, and if you have decent healing, then you're pretty much set. So very, very solid tank choice, no matter if it's roll or open. So go with that. Bastion. I think I have to put Bastion in A, honestly. I think this new Bastion is a huge problem. Being able to move and turret form and dish out some heavy damage really quick can definitely hurt. I think his biggest downside, and why I might drop him down to B, definitely in this like middle area, is the fact that he is a big target and kind of easy to kill. But if you're playing him right, he can do a shit ton of damage, or at least break down any shield that the enemy team might have very quickly. His ultimate isn't necessarily the best, but he can definitely do some very heavy damage very quickly. So if you need solid DPS, or you're having trouble with somebody like Reinhardt or Sigma or even Winston with some shield, or even Orisa, he's definitely a solid choice and can honestly, obviously, mow down anybody that is not a tank very, very quickly. Definitely a good DPS choice. Oh, let's go Sigma. I would say I would have to put Sigma in C. Everybody just does everything he does better. He has obviously a lot of health, and his ultimate is pretty decent, but if you need somebody with a shield, Reinhardt is going to be much better, in my opinion, than Sigma will ever be as far as shield maining. DPS wise, I would say almost every single tank can out DPS a Sigma for the most part, or at least keep up with his damage, and do better in other aspects. I don't see the big point in being Sigma, to be honest. I've never really liked him on my team, and he's not too awful to play against. The only upside he really has is, if somebody like Soldier or something is shooting into his, you know, uh, black hole shield up ability. I don't remember the name. But I just think that there's other people that do everything that he does better. But that's obviously on you. It's your choice. If you really like Sigma, he can definitely be decent. But again, everything that he does to me can just be outdone by somebody else, or if not, stay on the same level as him. So it's kind of just up to you. Hanzo, I'll give it a B. I definitely think he can do some good damage, but I just don't really see him as much anymore. I definitely think there's just kind of obviously some better and more consistent DPS units. His ultimate is pretty easy to watch out for unless you're, using it with something like a Zarya ult or something like that. But yeah, I just, he can definitely be decent and get some picks and some snipes or whatever, but just very too inconsistent. And can halfway be jumped on or dived on relatively easily. I mean, he's kind of the same as like Junkrat, if he hits you once or twice with even a dive, he's going to kill you, but it's just not the best, not the worst. There's better choices, but it is what it is. Baptiste, I'll put in B. I think he is definitely a solid healer and can definitely be a solid DPS unit as well, and can definitely keep your team alive as well as himself. I think the biggest reason why I have him in B and not A is his ultimate. His ultimate is just lackluster as shit, honestly. It's not going to help you that much, not going to help you for that long, and you essentially have to have certain people on your team for it to even be really successful and to be, right in front of the, window, if you will, that is his ultimate. So aside from his ultimate being pretty shit, I think he's a very, very solid support. You have to kind of hit the healing bombs a little decently. Definitely one of the best tank healers in the game for sure. I mean, I guess kind of all of them are pretty solid, but with people that aren't tanks, he's a little more inconsistent with his healing, but can obviously heal multiple people at once if you kind of hit the ground. But he's just not the best to me. As far as if you need some DPS help with support, he's definitely there and can do that and can keep himself alive, no problem. But still, there's just better supporting units in every way that can outshine him. I would say the only way that somebody doesn't is probably damage, because he can definitely help with that pretty well. But somebody like Moira, which we will do next, can definitely be much more damaging than Baptiste will ever be. Because while Moira can be a tiny bit inconsistent with her healing due to it needing to have damage output to increase it and to have the ability to heal, it's very easy to get her her damage slash heal orb is one of the most annoying and damaging things in the game. And you can throw it out so consistently. She's very hard to kill because she can just, she's so mobile with her, I don't want to call it a blink ability, but shadow form or whatever. Definitely a problem, can definitely reach you from very, very far away and do some solid damage. And she's hard to hit because she's so skinny and small. but definitely one of the best. She's the most damaging healer and the best healer if you can play her correctly. And it's not too hard to play her because everything she does is very strong. And her ult is, you know, minimum one of the best support ults in the game for sure, because she can literally hit every single person in the game with it and either heal them or do damage. So it's very solid. She's a very solid choice, and definitely hard to kill, good amount of damage no matter what, and good amount of healing with that as well. So super solid choice is Moira for support. Sombra, I'm not really going to talk about her too much, honestly. She, much like a lot of the other heroes, if you have the right team comp, she can be successful just to get some backline picks on some supports or somebody that's low or squishies, and definitely obviously hack the health packs so they can't gain health should they need to go to one. The enemies I'm talking about. Her ultimate is pretty solid, but as far as like actual damage and possible, killing is not always there, and certain, um, you know, maps and modes and stuff. She just not the most consistent. Fun to play for sure, and can definitely cause huge problems if you play her correctly. But with the right team comps, and if you're not really getting some picks or peels or anything, it's just kind of, you're better off choosing somebody else to help your team and do more consistent damage. McCree, I have to put in B as well. I just think that he can kind of be killed a lot easier now without his stun ability. His grenade now can still do a very solid amount of damage, especially if you stick it to them. But I think he's just not what he used to be. He can definitely still, have a high amount of damage. His ult is questionable, just way too inconsistent for me to really put him up there. I would, as far as if I can put people in order on B, I would put him on, this end of the DPS B list for sure. But, I think it's just consistency with him, and there's still better DPS choices that are going to help in every aspect better than he can. Pharah, I'll put in B as well. Again, just consistency. There's so many hit scan people at this point in the game that she can kind of be taken out of the sky, not too not too difficult. I don't know, whatever. So that can definitely be a problem for her. If you got, Pharmacy, Pocket Mercy, she's definitely still a huge problem for sure. So if you're running that, but if you're not, and with how strong Torb is at the moment, not super strong, but very solid choice. She just definitely what carries her is her ability to cause the team to use hit scans to be able to deal with her, and she can do a solid amount of damage so long as she's hitting her rockets or at least doing splash. And her ultimate is very good, but I think she's just relatively easily to deal with against, or with the right team or people. So since we put Torbjorn up here, I think he's pretty solid right now. I think essentially having what is a whole other almost unit on your team help with damage, which is the turret, is very nice. It definitely gets him his ult very quickly, and his ult is pretty solid, especially, pretty much in any game mode or on anything, because he can keep you off of it for X amount of time unless you want to take some heavy damage. And survivability, being able to heal himself, is nice, as well as being able to shoot from a distance or close. He's pretty pretty good overall, no matter what. Honestly, I think I'm gonna put him in A. I don't really, there's not really a huge downside to even playing Torb at all. Um, yeah, I mean, I can't really think of like a bad thing to say about Torb, but I just don't really think that he's like S tier, like OP, hard to deal with or anything. But he's definitely a solid choice, even without his turret. So definitely a good choice to play. We'll end with my girl in support, Mercy. Minimum A. I'm trying to think if she should be an S as well or not. But minimum A for sure. Yeah, she's got to go to S, because if you're just talking about straight up healing, nobody can really out heal Mercy except maybe Lucio because of the area effect. But like keeping people, if anybody can solo heal in the game, it's Mercy. Um, being able to damage boost somebody too can definitely help, and being able to revive someone can definitely keep you in the fight, if not win you the game as well. Her ultimate is, obviously not as good as it once was, but definitely a very decent ultimate, one of the lesser ones in the support. I'd honestly say, nah, not the worst, because that's probably Breaker Baptiste, but, down there in the support ultimates for sure. But if you need a straight up healer, you're playing open queue and nobody chose healer and you have to be it, she can do it better than anybody in my opinion, for sure. Ashe, I'll give Ashe an A. Good amount of damage, whether close range or a distance. Her dynamite burning does so much damage, it's ridiculous. And Bob is a very solid ultimate as well. Can definitely win you some fights. I think her biggest thing is just possible lack of mobility. She still kind of has a little bit with her shotgun blast, if you will, but I think that's the biggest downside to her. If you can kind of jump on her, she's not too difficult to kill, compared to some of the other backline units that are much more mobile. Even Widow's more mobile than Ashe, in my opinion. Now, as far as damage, definitely not, but if you really need to get out of there, I think Ashe is one of the lesser backline people that can do it well. But other than that, solid amount of damage no matter how you play her. Very good ult. The dynamite is absolutely disgusting, so play her. Tracer, I'll put in B. I think she's definitely still one of the best at, just being mobile, obviously, but also causing problems for the enemy team or your team. The biggest reason why I don't really have her in A is because even with like a full clip, unless you're hitting like all headshots, very close range, you're just not really going to kill somebody like at one time. Still, you can cause huge disruptions. Her ult is not bad. I mean, it's pretty much at least a guaranteed one kill, depending on how you might stick with it. I think she's just a little inconsistent as far as damage. Still a good peeler, I might take her over Genji as far as if you're really needing to jump on a backline unit person, just because of her blinking and high mobility in that aspect. But I definitely think Genji could out damage her, maybe not consistently because you have to hit the shurikens and they have to get to her, but hit scan close range machine pistols just don't do a whole lot of damage. So you definitely have to kind of take your time and definitely get in and out of a fight and blink in and out of there. But can definitely cause some huge disruptions in the game, especially because there's less people and you can definitely, if they're running a Zen, you can definitely blink back there and deal with them pretty decently and cause the fight to be very much turned. Symmetra, Honestly, I have to put Symmetra in A right now. I think she's a pretty solid DPS unit right now. Not necessarily the most consistent, and the teleport and her ultimate is kind of lackluster, which that's a lot of shit that I just said about her. But with the people that are good, as long as they're not destroying your sentries, um, she's arguably the best person to deal with Lucio for sure with her sentries. And the more that you're hitting someone with your primary fire beam, the more damage you're going to be doing, which is great. And then honestly, her alternate fire moves so fast, like insanely fast, and does a high amount of damage that it's she's a pretty solid DPS unit. Now, not always the best, and definitely depending upon map and game mode and what the other team is running and what your team is running. A lot of downside to her, and probably should be in the B tier, but I also think because of who is in the meta right now, such as Diva or Lucio, and stuff like that, having easy ways to deal with those heroes is her. And honestly, the teleport can kind of be cheeky, or at least minimum helpful to get your team back into the fight quickly. So pretty solid choice, but on the less consistent, if I'm looking at all these other damage units, and I would take all of them over her. But I would take Symmetra over all of these damage units, I would say, for the most part, depending. Reinhardt, I gotta give to A. I think he is very difficult to deal with these days, especially if he's being healed correctly. His shield is obviously worse, but having 2 fire strikes definitely makes up for the amount of damage he can do. And the amount of damage he can do swinging his hammer is obviously very disgusting against anybody that's not a tank. I really honestly don't have anything too bad to say about him, aside from, you kind of have to be close to do any damage, aside from maybe a fire strike or to hit a pin. But, he's just very back and forth on, who can deal with him and who can't. But overall, still, one of the best tanks in the game for sure. And then honestly, I have to put Orisa in S tier. I think the amount of damage she can do, the survivability that she can do by twirling her javelin in front of her and pushing people back, as well as being able to fortify and stop virtually everything, is all very solid. Her ultimate, as long as you hold it down for a good time and power it up, can definitely be a solid thing. At minimum, you're going to at least get everybody close to you and help your team possibly get some, help you get some kills and everything. But I honestly don't have anything bad to say about Orisa, except that, she's a big target, I guess, but easy to heal no matter what healer you are. And easy to keep herself alive, as well as, if you're playing a support, keep her alive as well, because she has so much survivability as a tank, and, can help at any point, whether it's, trying to hit scan a fire up in the sky, helping, your supports deal with a tracer or something, and minimum just stay on something like the payload, being able to push people off of it, being able to consistently push it forward, or just literally hold that defensive line, because it's very hard to kill her unless, she's not really using her abilities or she's not being healed. So, very solid choice in all aspects of the game. So hopefully you guys like it. Hopefully this will help you guys start your Overwatch 2 Season 2 off well. Let me know what you guys think, where you guys would place some people, where you think I placed them, and what you have to say about that. Obviously, again, anybody on this entire list can be S tier, and anybody on this entire list can be D tier. It just depends on who's playing them, and a lot of other factors, obviously, in this game. But I would say this is pretty consistently what I have seen and who I would play or who I would want on my team heading into the second season of Overwatch Competitive to Competitive. So I will see you guys in the next one. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you.